So it is a renowned face and well-known face in our TV channels. He actually participates in the HMTV debates and also a regular participant in the ETV2 Pratidhwani programs. So in 2008 and the Rural Development Institute and NGO was started. So presently Sir is the state director. So I am extremely privileged and take pleasure to welcome Sir on behalf of Group 1 Training Officer. I am also on behalf of Training Service, Group 1 Training. I am saluting your work for the tribal law.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you all. And a few statements he made about me, and kind of maybe very younger to a lot of you sitting there. But I have another 15 minutes time with me to share my 8 years of experience working on land issues, especially on tribal issues. I was just sharing with Madam here, stating that I share a lot of memories with this hall. I think this very hall, a meeting happened to discuss Koneru Rangaravu committee recommendations with all party delegates. I was working in Indira Kantipuram program as a state legal coordinator there, launching paralegal initiative to help the poor. And if you come across that report, I think you can see it in the website also, of the report of the government, which is looking at land issues. Out of 104 recommendations, 41 recommendations are pertaining to tribal area. You read Koneru Rangaravu report, half of the report is about tribal area, and we were discussing all these issues in this very same hall. And I came several occasions to this hall, talking to SRG women, gathered here discussing about poor people's issues. I was here talking to political party people and with those delegates, and you are all again there. Today you are at that side, tomorrow you will be standing this side, and at a decision-making authority, you have green pen, I don't have a green pen, and you can make a difference. I go to everybody who has a green pen, saying that use some ink for poor, make their life little more greenery, because you have green pen. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I take this as an honor. I am a lawyer by profession. I studied in Nalsara University of Law. Actually, I should be one among you. My life's ambition is to become a civil servant. That's why I choose entire my education a very planned way, so that I can score very high in civil services. I studied MBBS in intermediate, thinking that I can score more marks in general studies. I joined law, thinking that I can be a better administrator if I have a law background. But entire my life changed in my first year of law course in Nalsara. As a student, I was thinking, I am a lawyer now, I am going to become a lawyer in another 4 years. What can I do to society as a lawyer? Giving bread, butter, or distributing blankets and doing that. Everybody can do it, because that's just only giving money. But as a lawyer, what can I do? That motivated, that drive us to go to field. We went to field. I belong to Warangal district. Gone back to my own villages, trying to see what I can do. Miracles happened in just a month's time, that we could actually hold courts in villages, dispose civil criminal all cases, making a village litigation free. If you are from Warangal or near to those places, you can anytime, if you go back to that place, you can find out that 2-3 villages when Mr. M.N. Pathulu was a district judge in Warangal, all this happened. That kind of gave a lot of motivation. That time I don't have a green pen, I not even have a black coat to wear to argue, but still we could make a difference. Then it kind of strike me somewhere saying that law as a powerful tool, we can do lots by using law. And I decided myself to be a lawyer and work using law for people. And I'll tell you, anybody who has legal knowledge is an engineer. Today is a mad rush to force our children to either make them become doctor or an engineer. But I tell you, they are not real engineers. All of you who are going to know the law, who are going to make use of law, are engineers. Because lawyers are social engineers. You build a society. People with legal knowledge build a society. If as people with the legal knowledge, if we don't use it properly, on behalf of the poor, society will collapse. So you are the society builders. You are the society engineers. That's why whenever I have a little time, I try to go to this kind of institutions, Judicial Academy, Marichinad Institute, to share whatever little knowledge I acquired. I am very humble before you. I am not saying that I know everything in law. You might know more than me, but I'll take next 45 minutes to share some of my experiences. Let me come back to where we are. I can talk of a lot of land issues in plain area, I can talk of other things, but today's focus is on tribal issues, because if we don't talk about tribals, if we don't try to do something about their issues, as our friend just mentioned, that we are not able to even protect tribals from mosquito bite, there are such more bigger issues. If we don't work for them, if we don't protect them, after 10 years, maybe time is not so far, you can only see them in museums, you can't see them anywhere. And our Prime Minister recently made a statement that what is the highest security threat to this country? It's a extremist movement, LW movement. You not even want to take the name also sometimes. That's a fear we have. But what is the root cause of that movement? There's so much of government committee reports. The root cause is land. The root cause is forest. We are not addressing that. So long as we are not able to address land and forest issues, we are going to face these problems every time and any time. And what we can do in those areas, that's a very important factor. And I'm fortunate that when Jairam Ramesh took over as RD Minister, he's taken a decision. In fact, he was there in one of the conferences we organized in Hyderabad and made a promise that he's going to have a paralegal movement which was started in Andhra. In all other LW states, wherever this problem is there, the local trained youth will be working as paralegals trying to help the poor resolve their issues. So there is some movement happening, but it's external. And if the government officers themselves decide to do this kind of work, there is no need of all this. There is no need of Sunil, there is no need of a paralegal, there is no need of any other person, because you have the power if you can do it. Okay, I can operate from here. You look at the slide, we are talking about this population in the state. It's not a small minority group. There are around 33 different tribal groups in the state with around near to 7% population. And if you look at the geographical spread, this is the area we are talking about in AP. And there is a difference between tribal area, scheduled area. Tribal area is also synonymous with scheduled area, but wherever there is a predominant tribal population, it's not a scheduled area. There is certain area which is notified under the constitution as a scheduled area, where there is a special administration, special laws. And that's the area you see in green, with a special scheduled area and with a special laws in that area. And the districts being starting from Adilabad to Srikakulam. It's like Adilabad, Warangal, Khammam, East Godavari, West Godavari, Vijayanagaram, Visakhapatnam, Srikakulam, and parts of Mahabubnagar. There are 2 mandals in Mahabubnagar which are scheduled area. So, and why we are talking about this area separately? There is entire AP. We can talk about issues entire in AP. But why there is special need to talk about this area? Why there is a special need to talk about tribals? Just have a look at this. Like, I don't know how visible it is, but the tribals, why they need special protection? Why they need special administration? If you go back in history, maybe as a student of political science, maybe as a student of history, you might have learned those areas we now call it as scheduled area or a tribal area or agency tracts. Once upon a time, maybe 100 years before, 150 years before, it was only resided by tribals. There is no other population in that area, and they have a special culture. Whether there is where we call that is a civilization, ours is a civilization, is a big debatable issue. But that's a different civilization. At least that much I can say. They had their own culture. But the minute the outsider, the so-called outsider, started entering these areas, then the trouble began. And then the tussle between the so-called tribal and the so-called non-tribal, we gave that names. That's the reason there was a need to have a special mechanism, special law, special administration. But if you look at it in a different way, pre-British era, British era and post-British also, all the trouble was only due to external factor intervening in those areas. In external people trying to reside there, trying to occupy their lands or cultivate those lands or exploit the forest resources, then the trouble began. And you saw so many rebellious movements, whether it's the Rambachodavaram and other parts of country, you have very serious movements generated because of this kind of problem. And unfortunately, all our laws, fortunately or unfortunately, whatever laws I'm going to talk about now, mostly in relation to 2 important resources, land and forest, it's a result or an outcome of a rebellious movement by tribals. ఎప్పుడైతే వాళ్ళు కత్తిలో విల్లంబులో గన్నులో ఏదో ఒకటి తీసుకొని ఫైట్ చేశారో then there as a state response we had legislations. We had only legislations, but we are not gone beyond really implementing those laws. Let's see for the slides. I'm not going to explain all those laws. Take a minute, see how many laws are enacted and when was the first law. You can trace back to 1917, 1839. There are so many legislations. And mind you that we had a different set of laws in Telangana and Andhra. Because Andhra being under Madras presidency, you have British laws, and under Nizam you had different set of laws. This is the Telangana law, which came in 1359. Post-independence. I only listed few. If I have to mention everything, I think I need around 10 slides talking about various legislations in tribal area. I'll take a minute here, then go into other issues. In tribal area now, there is different administration setup as I mentioned in the beginning. What is the different administrative setup and what is the role you want to play there? Until 2004, both civil jurisdiction, that is trying civil cases, and criminal jurisdiction was in the hands of revenue magistrates, whether it's a Tahsildar, Deputy Collector, with RDO, or any other revenue functionaries. They had different powers under law. But in 2004, the criminal jurisdiction was taken away from revenue authorities, given to judiciary. There was a very famous case in Supreme Court, and you might have read in newspapers also. In CRPC, I think Professor G.B. Reddy will come and teach you, I believe. He can teach you well. In CRPC, there is one beneficial provision. Suppose X committed an offence which is punishable with an imprisonment of 2 years, but that X fellow already completed more than 2 years in prison as an under trial. What the new CRPC says, he can be released immediately because he already completed whatever the maximum punishment available in IPC. So he has to be released. But the new CRPC was never made applicable in tribal area because any law in tribal area, the parliament or legislature cannot make law for these scheduled areas. It is only governor and president. Any law made by parliament or legislature, for it to be enforced in tribal area, it has to be given assent by either governor or president. That CRPC was not extended to tribal area. So once National Human Rights Commission chairman was visiting one of the jail in Kakinada, or Rajahmundry, I think, Rajahmundry, he saw so many under trial prisoners as tribals being under trial prisoners. So he asked the jailer, why all these people are lying in jail? Says they are committed some offence under excise, maybe some arrest, preparation or kind of holding more than what is the required limits. So they were in prison. How many years? 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. What is the maximum punishment? 6 years, 6 months or 1 year. Then why they are still lying there? New CRPC doesn't apply. That's why case went till up to Supreme Court. Finally Supreme Court said, please apply the new CRPC also to tribal area. In fact, Marichanad Institute constituted a committee to look into repercussions of applying the new CRPC. Finally it was extended. But in civil cases, still the revenue machinery holds the jurisdiction. And now there is a debate going on to take away the civil jurisdiction also from revenue authorities and give it to civil courts. So off the record we can discuss about more debates and other things. Going forward, today I will only talk about 2 or 3 important legislations pertaining to land and forest, because in tribal area it is only land and forest still continues to be the livelihood resources. Even we don't talk about employment guarantee scheme or any other program. In tribal areas, it is the primary and the single most important resources, land and forest. So let's spend a little time in understanding what is the law governing land, what is the law governing forest. If you look at the law governing land, some of you might heard about Regulation 1 of 70, Regulation 1 of 59, LTR, these kind of names so popular in newspapers also. These regulations came into force both in Andhra and Telangana region to protect tribals from exploitation of non-tribals, to protect tribal in preserving their land. So there was a ban imposed since 1970 in Andhra area, there is a restriction of transfer of land from tribal to non-tribal. It started from 1917 in Andhra. Andhra also includes Bhadrachalam agency because that was under East Godavari. So what this law says that no non-tribal can acquire any land or any immovable property in scheduled area. Very simple law, which has around 8 or 9 sections, and this was reiterated again post-independence in Regulation 1 of 59, and that got amended in 1963, 70, 71 and 78. Basically 63 amendment is extending this LTR provisions to Telangana area. Until 1963, LTR Act is not applicable in Telangana region. There was a different law, but there is not LTR. Very precisely, that is the law. And take a 1 minute. I suggest all of you to read this paragraph, and I'll explain. This is a crux. If you want to understand LTR, this paragraph is enough. And mark those words which are kind of in bold letters. It says in a very simple language, any immovable property in scheduled area, only tribal or tribal society can purchase or can get land transferred in their name. And conversely, no non-tribal can get any immovable property in scheduled area. So to understand 2-3 key terms there, you understand the law completely. What is transfer? What constitutes a transfer? What is immovable property? And what is this agency tax? And when this law came into picture. If you know that, it's very easy. In a tribal area, what kind of transaction can happen? There are only 4 basic types of transaction which can happen in tribal area between tribal and non-tribal. A property can change hands between tribal and tribal. A tribal is selling a land to another tribal. We don't have a problem because ultimate beneficiary is a tribal. The second transaction is between a non-tribal to a tribal. Still we don't have a problem because ultimate beneficiary is a tribal. Then the third transaction, tribal to non-tribal. Then we have an issue because a non-tribal is acquiring property and that has to be critically looked into. Then we have that transaction is problematic. There is a fourth transaction, non-tribal to non-tribal. A non-tribal is buying property from another non-tribal. Do we have a problem that if a non-tribal legitimately owning property in scheduled area is transferring that property to another non-tribal in that area or in some other area? How many of you consider that that is not problematic? A non-tribal selling property to another non-tribal. Can I see hands up? Nothing wrong. This debate went it was a big debate in Supreme Court also, discussing.
It will be wrong actually because the so-called non-tribal must have taken the land of the tribal.
No, presume that, at least for a debate's sake, presume that non-tribal has a legitimate title on a property in a scheduled area. And can he transfer to another non-tribal? That's a question. If there is no other answer, I can continue my discussion. But did any of you feel that the transaction is okay?
The transaction is fine. If it is a legal land acquired to the non-tribal, even if it is a scheduled area,
Okay.
I feel I have no problem when
A non-tribal is getting property from another non-tribal.
yes.
Any other person with the same view?
Land should be acquired by a private person.
No, that's fine, but I'm asking a different question. What is your view if a non-tribal is acquiring property from another non-tribal? I think there's some hands up that corner. Yeah, please. Some of you, I think there are 3 hands were up that corner. Okay. No, nothing wrong. This is the only time you can debate and discuss. Once you get into service, I think you don't express your own views. You go by what is there in the law. Fine. You have any comments on that? Please.
The ancient hereditary rights were vested with tribals, and somehow in some generation that non-tribal has taken over it. That would be a violation of tribal.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Now, this case went up to Supreme Court. Initially in LTR, there was no ban on transactions between non-tribal to non-tribal. The original LTR in 1917, what it said, tribal to tribal, it didn't talk about. Non-tribal to tribal, LTR doesn't talk about it because the tribal is a beneficiary. From tribal to non-tribal, the original LTR in 1917 said, still non-tribal can buy property from a tribal only with the consent of the agent. Agent being the district collector. So the original 1917 regulation says non-tribal can acquire property from a tribal provided that he has or she has a previous consent of the collector. That was also removed in 1959. Post-independence, regulation 1 of 59, they said nothing doing. Non-tribal at any cost can acquire property from a tribal. That's complete ban was done. Now the dilemma was regarding non-tribal to non-tribal. Lot of us were of the view that how the tribal is losing. If a non-tribal has a piece of land and in his name or her name, what is wrong if he is selling it to some other person? How can you deprive that right? But imagine a tribal village with 1,000 population. Out of 1,000, they have 1,000 acres of land. I am giving a hypothetical example. 1,000 population, 1,000 acres. Out of 1,000 population, 100 people are non-tribals. There are 100 only out of 1,000, 100 are non-tribals. And each family owns 1 acre of land. That means entire non-tribal holding in that village is around 100 acres. And given your logic of saying that what is wrong a non-tribal selling land to another non-tribal, the land pool might remain the same, that 900 acres belonging to tribal, 100 acres belonging to non-tribal. But the population of non-tribals will increase because they are buying land and more families will come and settle. As for tribal culture, if the non-tribal population is more, they can't live together there and they will be subject to exploitation. What they will do, they will go more deep into the forest. They will be migrating from their villages. You see so many deserted villages, tribal villages. And there was a classic report on tribal land alienations. You can see that there are hundreds of families migrated. With this logic, even though you might be having the same number of, same extent of land available for tribal, but they will be exploited. That's one reason. Second, originally entire scheduled area is decided by tribals. And how come non-tribals came into that area? With some or other means that they have acquired property at some point of time from a tribal. That means there is an injustice done already at some point of time. By allowing a non-tribal again to sell it to another non-tribal, you are perpetuating the injustice already done. And then the aim of LTR is not that. The aim of LTR is to restore all the lands back to tribals. And there is a legal presumption clause in LTR which says all lands in scheduled area is once belongs to tribal. Any non-tribal owning property in tribal area, it is presumed that that non-tribal has acquired that land or that property from a tribal by violating LTR. And it is a duty and it's a responsibility of that non-tribal to prove that he is not actually violated LTR. The burden of proof lies not on the tribal. The burden of proof lies on non-tribal. What does it mean? Suppose you walk into any of these scheduled areas, from Adilabad to Srikakulam, you find a non-tribal cultivating land. That means you can come to a presumption he violated LTR. You can book a case. For booking a LTR case, for giving a complaint, you need not be a revenue authority.
Does it mean LTR has a retrospective effect?
No, that I'll come to it. I'll come to LTR. When it came to force, I'll talk about it. This non-tribal to non-tribal transaction is only prohibited from 1970 because that amendment was brought in 1970. And before 1970, non-tribal to non-tribal transaction is permitted because that was not banned by LTR. And regulation 1 of 59 came into force only from 1959. And Telangana area it came into force from 1963. LTR has only prospective effect. It doesn't have retrospective effect. But you can initiate case Suppose in an area where you go, there are 2 acres of land being cultivated by a non-tribal, maybe you might have acquired that land from a non-tribal in 1965, even before LTR came into force regarding non-tribal to non-tribal transaction. But still you can file a case, and non-tribal should come and prove in court, stating that no, I acquired this land from a non-tribal legitimately before commencement of LTR, then okay, he will get right. Otherwise the land will be taken by the government. So what I am saying, to file a case, you need not be a revenue authority. Any government servant, any individual can make a complaint to agency courts. I will come to which are the adjudicating authorities. Coming back to definition there, what constitutes violation of LTR? That means what is a transfer? Is it only selling of property is a transfer? What is another mode of transfer? Any dealing with land can be considered as transfer under LTR. That means either you are gifting it, you are leasing it out, you are selling, you are mortgaging, you are exchanging that land, you do any transaction, any kind of dealing with immovable property, it is considered as a transfer. Or you agree to sell piece of land in tribal area, still it is considered as a transfer. If it is a transfer, then automatically it will attract LTR. And what is an immovable property? What you can transfer? Is it only agricultural land? What is the definition of immovable property? Well, if any of you are a law student or studied law, look at Transfer of Property Act. There is a definition of immovable property and a simple general knowledge definition of immovable property. Land and anything permanently attached to land is immovable property. But there is slight difference of definition of immovable property in LTR. Why? Suppose you take crop, standing crop. In the Immovable Property Act, is it a immovable property or not under TP? It is not. But in LTR, it is an immovable property. Whether timber is a immovable property or movable property, if you take a normal meaning of immovable property, timber is not an immovable property. But under LTR, it is an immovable property because those two are important assets of tribals. So you look at the definition of transfer. I have given there for your convenience. You read the second paragraph. Transfer means. So anything, any immovable property. The law is very simple. So suppose what happens, there is a violation of LTR. What is the consequence? Simple consequences. Very simple consequence. Complicated results. Consequence is very simple. There are special courts, special adjudicating authorities under LTR. The lowest authority being Revenue Divisional Officer or SDC. There is a special deputy collectors in each of these tribal area. In each ITDA there is SDC post. In Utnur, Edunagaram, Kayarpuram, Ramachudavaram, Parvatipuram, Paderu, Sitampet, and every place there is a post called Special Area Deputy Collector, Tribal Welfare. He has a competency or she has a competency to try disputes under LTR. There is other person who has jurisdiction, that's RDO, who the RDO of that particular area can also try cases under LTR. Who can take cases to these courts? Either RDO court or SDC court, as I previously mentioned. The affected party can go, a tribal or a non-tribal, whoever, they can approach. Second, any public servant can make a complaint. Number 3, the officers themselves, the adjudicating authority, can take cases suo motu. If something comes to his or knowledge, they can take cases suo motu. What will happen if they have taken cases suo motu or there is a case brought before LTR authority? There will be a trial, obviously. They will hear both the parties. If they come to a conclusion that there is a violation of LTR, there is a violation of the law, the land will be taken back by the government. So government will take the land into their custody and restore it to original tribal. The land, the original, whoever is the original owner of that land has to be restored back to the tribal family. Suppose if the government can't trace the tribal family or the tribal family refuse to take in that land, then what the government should do? It has to assign that piece of land to another tribal. A simple consequence. Suppose if the transaction is between two non-tribals and LTR authorities came to a conclusion that there is a violation of LTR, then government will take the land into custody. Whom should land belong to now? Both the parties are non-tribals and there is a violation of LTR. Government has taken land into custody. Whom should land go to? Now, the original non-tribal or? Given the previous logic, if a party is tribal, it has to be restored.
Original non-tribal is covered.
But as that's it's not correct as per law. Under LTR, even with dispute between two non-tribals, land will not go to the original non-tribal. It has to be given to, it has to be assigned to a tribal family. Government will take into custody. You read the law carefully. There is a word which says one of the consequences is restoring land back to tribal. There is no mention of giving land back to a non-tribal. So the consequence is that a tribal will get the land. If anybody has any grievance with the decision given by this lower authority, there is appeal to agent. That's a district collector. But very recently, the appellate powers which are vested with the district collector were delegated to additional agent, which is POITDA. In all ITDAs, now this appellate authority is with the POITDA. Even the parties are not satisfied with the decision of the appellate authority, that's the first appellate authority, they can approach the government under revision. And the revision powers lies with the tribal welfare minister or with the principal secretary tribal welfare. If it is delegated to principal secretary tribal welfare. Now principal secretary tribal welfare conducts a trial, conducts an inquiry, and he can pass a decision. So only three tier. Original case trial by LTR authorities, SDCR RDO, first appeal to POITDA, revision to government. In between, if any of the party feels that there is a violation of principles of natural justice, then they can go to High Court. What are the principles of natural justice? Suppose I have not given a notice. Without giving notice, they have conducted a trial. Or I can't call it trial because it's not a criminal case, but there is a criminal angle to it also. They conducted a case and the decision was given. I can go to High Court. Or any other reasons of principles of natural justice violation, I can file a writ petition under Article 226. That is a redressal mechanism. In 1978, there was another amendment brought to LTR bringing criminal provisions. So from 1978, if anybody, any non-tribal, continues in possession of land on which already judgment is passed against that non-tribal. So there is a decision against a non-tribal, but the non-tribal is still cultivating the land. Then there is an offence. Or a non-tribal purchases or gets any land from a tribal after 78 is again an offence, punishable with imprisonment of 1 year and 2,000 rupees penalty. That's the law. You might have a genuine question now. Non-tribals are having some property, they can't sell it to tribal or they can't sell it to non-tribal, but there is no tribal coming forward to buy the land. What will happen? It's a deprival of their fundamental right. And what is the consequence? So some of the non-tribals went up to Supreme Court challenging this, saying that if you ban transaction between non-tribal to non-tribal, we will be deprived, and it's violation of Article 14 of the Constitution. While a case is pending in Supreme Court, government made an amendment to LTR and said if no tribal is coming forward to purchase the land, government will acquire that as per the rate fixed under land acquisition. That rate they will fix and government will buy. Is this clear? It's not. There is no complication, but the complication will begin now, not here. Before I go to Forest Rights Act, let me talk about now some of the complications, and I can run through other slides a little later. What are the complications you think in LTR? Law is 8 sections or 9 sections. Very simple. Before I open it to you to respond, one or two of you to respond, I'll tell you only 2-3 statistics. And now you can understand, you can imagine what is the problem in tribal area. Land transfer regulation, post-independence, came in 1959. 1959 to 2004, we have statistics of how many cases filed, how many cases decided. You open tribal welfare website, you will also get those numbers, but I'll tell you for your benefit now. There are 76,000 cases filed under LTR for various violations. And out of 76,000 cases which are filed until 2004, most of the cases are already decided. Around 35,000 plus, around 36,000 cases were decided in favor of non-tribals. If you look at extent wise, it's a huge extent of land. Why this happened? One figure you have to kind of really keep in mind. Number two, what happened to other 34,000 cases which were decided in favor of tribals? I'll only share you one story and give a generalized statement. When I've taken charge as a state legal coordinator in IKP, working there as a lawyer defending cases of the poor and tribal, my colleague from Khammam calls me up. He's a lawyer there, working as a district coordinator. He says, "Sir, I have come to know a case. Some tribal family came to me during my field visit. It's initial days of his work in some remote area near Palvancha. And he says, this tribal family lost, the two families, lost 10 acres of land to a non-tribal. There was a decision by SDC stating that there is a violation of LTR and land has to be restored back to a tribal family. And the judgment is in 1984. He is talking to me in 2005 or 2006, beginning of 2006, 84 to 2006, and he is saying that what? That sir, there is a judgment by LTR authority, and judgment was not executed, and this tribal family never got the land back. Now I said go to Tahsildar because under LTR, the executing authority is the Tahsildar. Once SDC passes an order, he will direct the Tahsildar to conduct a Panchanama, physically hand over the land to the tribal family and send a report. I said go to Tahsildar and say that there is an order, you have to execute. It took 1 month between legal coordinator, Tahsildar and all those people. Finally said he is not doing it. And I had to move up and down from RDO, Joint Collector to the Principal Secretary. Various officers got involved. In 2 months' time, finally we could able to get the judgment executed and physically hand over the land to the tribal family. And within a week's time, he filed a writ petition in High Court, stating that LTR authorities or Tahsildar cannot execute this order because it's barred by time. I don't know where he got this logic. And we never know that he's going to go to High Court. But fortunately, I had my friends in High Court. They called me saying that there's a case from this area. Why don't you come and implead? We got impleaded ourselves and argued before the court stating that no, whatever the authority has done is correct. And with all our force, we could win the case. And that's only one case. But think of other 34,000 cases which are already decided. How many of those 34,000 cases are executed? You go to any tribal area, you will know. I myself read around 6,000 case files decided by various authorities from Adilabad to Srikakulam. Most of the cases, the pathetic story is that they don't have the report from Tahsildar saying that they have already executed that. And most of those lands are still being cultivated by the person who already grabbed that land or purchased that piece of land. This is the second story. Third story about LTR. Can anybody tell me how many criminal cases were booked under LTR? Do you heard any time that there is any criminal case booked under LTR? Now, that is a story. That is a story in tribal area. And I'll give you one more statistics to make things more complicated. There was a study done in Khammam district, Bhadrachalam agency, and also in West Godavari agency to really understand how many land alienations are happening in tribal area and how many are being brought before LTR authorities. And the study reveals that only 10% of actual land alienations are being brought before LTR authorities. That means the rest 90%, they are not even being brought before LTR authorities. Then what is happening? And rightly said, Mr. Balgopal, before he died, he is one of the champions of tribals fighting for their cause in High Court. I have fortune to meet him only once and twice in my life with him. A very great man. He said, LTR Act is superbly implemented in Andhra, AP, across AP. Because why? I said, why do you think so? He says, except 7,000 acres, all other land was scrutinized under LTR. Except 7,000 acres, all the land was scrutinized already under LTR. And what was the outcome? The outcome was what I am describing now. That more than half of the cases going against tribals, and half of the cases where they have a judgment, it was not executed. It may be executed in some of the cases, but majority of the situation is like this. Now you look at the root causes. Why this is happening? It is happening only because of very, very simple reasons. If you look at when these cases are filed, majority of these cases are filed when tribals have no knowledge. And in fact, non-tribals only, whenever they had a favorable officer, they got case instituted against them and got an order. You know why? Once they get an order, favorable order, it will be difficult to reopen it. There is a great principle in law. Some of you know the law will know. Res judicata. Case once decided, can't be tried again. So they said no. Case is already decided. Now you can't reopen it. Balgopal fought entire his life in High Court, saying that you cannot apply res judicata principle in LTR. If you apply res judicata principle, you can't open single case. Appeal is barred, you can't reopen. Now the next generation has little knowledge. They wanted to fight, now they can't fight. And I'll tell you, it is not so peculiar examples. Out of 6,000 files I have read through, you know how non-tribals won the case? Most of the six cases where they bought land from a tribal or a non-tribal on a white paper, mostly on white paper or a stamp paper, and with a date prior to commencement of LTR. Suppose they are buying land from a non-tribal, they will write a date prior to 1970, 1969, 68, sometime before 1970. And if they are buying from a tribal, they say they bought much before 1959. And when the case is filed, whether somebody approached the LTR authority, when a sumo case is filed, they produce two papers before LTR authority. One paper is this white paper sale transaction, unregistered sale transaction. Second piece of paper is a copy of land record, Pahani or Adangal. Telangana it's Pahani and Andhra it's Adangal. They have that year or a previous year's Adangal or Pahani certified copy stating that they are cultivating that land and they are the owners of the land. And they argue only one single point. LTR does not apply because transaction happened prior to cut-off date. And LTR has no applicability. If LTR doesn't apply, you don't have jurisdiction to try the case. So request you to drop the case. And officers most of the time conveniently drop the cases. But they are not asked a simple question. As per Evidence Act, in principles of law, you cannot admit a white paper document as a primary evidence. It is only a collaborative evidence. How can you take this white paper as a primary piece of evidence? Okay, then if you say your certified Pahani copy or Adangal copy is a primary evidence, then show me a Pahani of year where you purchased. If you say 59, show me Pahani of 59. If you say 78, 69, show me Pahani. They can't show it. The case is gone. But there is nobody on behalf of tribal arguing a single legal point. And interestingly, there is no need of a lawyer to argue in agency courts. You and me, anybody without a law degree can appear in agency courts because there is a power given to agent and additional agents to authorize anybody to appear before them in one single case or set of cases or over a period of time. It's called sanad. There was sanad for. They can designate somebody. But it was not done. So most of the cases with these kind of reasons gone into hands of non-tribals. I'll give more details of LTR, but let me also talk about another important piece of law. These are the common visuals when you go into scheduled area. Photo cultivation. People depending on forest because other than land cultivation, there's a second major resource is forest. Either people are cultivating forest land, people are depending on forest to produce, people are residing in forest. There are so many things which they make use of it. But interestingly, until this act came into force, the Forest Rights Act, which is a national law, all these activities which I just described is illegal as per Forest Act, Indian Forest Act and AP Forest Act. You can't cultivate forest land, which is encroachment of forest. A criminal case can be filed for people cultivating the forest land. And this is a landmark legislation in the country. I can say that after Constitution, this is the second most important piece of legal document. You know why? If you read the preamble of this law, Forest Rights Act, I don't know any one of you read the act, open the preamble, it says this act is being brought to undo the injustice done to tribal, historical injustice done to the tribals. Because until the act was enacted, we are of the opinion that there are only animals and trees in forest, but no human beings. First time, we have recognized that there are human beings enjoying the forest land and living in forest. And this act recognize the rights of the tribals. What are the rights? Right to reside, right to cultivate, right to use minor forest produce, right to pathways, community rights, all rights except hunting. All the rights are recognized, and there is a process prescribed to get a patta. We can't call it as a patta. We have to call it as a title because it's a little inferior to a patta. And what is the procedure? Under Forest Rights Act, there is a committee constituted in each Gram Panchayat called Forest Rights Committee. Forest Rights Committee can receive applications from people who are cultivating forest land or who are enjoying forest land for a residential purpose or any other purpose. And the cut-off date is 2005 December 13. Any tribal cultivating land on or before 2005 December 13 can make an application to Forest Rights Committee. Forest Rights Committee will do an inquiry. They have to submit at least 2 evidence to prove that they are cultivating the forest land. And what are those evidences? It can be any document, any patta earlier given, or a village elder statement, or any other proof, any survey done by government agencies, any study report, any statistical data, anything to prove that that piece of land being cultivated by particular tribal family. Once the Forest Rights Committee reviews it, it will submit before the Gram Sabha. Once Gram Sabha approves, Gram Sabha will recommend to a subdivisional committee, which is at a divisional level. Subdivisional level committee is constituted by RDO and a forest officer and a tribal welfare officer and 3 public representatives. They have to scrutinize and send it to district level committee. District level committee is by district collector and a forest officer and tribal welfare officer. Once they sign, all the 3 sign, a person can get a title. In Andhra Pradesh, until today, about 1,73,000 families have received title under this particular act. It's remarkable. If you compare with any other state, we are very progressive in that sense. But still, there are a lot of issues in implementing Forest Rights Act. Then I'll quickly take you through some of the issues. Before I go to that, let me deviate a little from Forest Rights Act and talk about one law in very briefly. Then I will take you through the important problems in tribal area, what we can do, how we can do. There is a third important legislation which we generally ignore and a lot of people doesn't know. It is Settlement Act, 1 of 70. It's also 1 of 70, 2 of 70, not 1 of 70, 2 of 70. The settlement regulation, basically, in land reforms history, you might have read somewhere or heard about it that all the intermediate systems are abolished who are actually cultivating land have to get a patta. Whether it's a zamindar, zagirdar, inamdar, all those systems are abolished, and who are actually cultivating the land should get a patta. Same thing is the settlement operation in tribal area. What this regulation says, 2 of 70, it says only 2 important things. If a tribal is cultivating the land in those scheduled area, if he can prove that he is cultivating 1 year prior to commencement of 2 of 70, which came in 1970, the tribal family will get a patta, passbook and title deed, patta document they will get it. If a non-tribal wanting to get a patta, non-tribal have to prove that he is cultivating or she is cultivating that piece of land 6 years prior to commencement of regulation 2 of 70. That means from around 64 to 70. And also prove that he is not in violation of LTR. LTR authorities are different, settlement authorities are different. So most of the time what has happened, non-tribals gone to settlement authority and got patta and saying that they are not violating LTR. And they got the same patta to LTR authorities and said, we already have a settlement patta, that means we are not in violation of LTR. So they use this as a means to escape from LTR. In tribal area, if you are really talking about helping them, these are the 3 important pieces of legislations impacting their life. Now look at what are the issues in tribal area. This is the first issue. We have a Forest Rights Act, but still in lot of areas they still not got a title. If you see some of the persons with that kind of problem, what can you do? It's a question. Look at the Forest Rights Act. I have a difference of opinion there. Some people say that Forest Rights Act is a one-time legislation. It's implemented, done. But that's not the story. Even if still there are some people who have not received claim, they can still file a claim to Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha still can recommend, and there is a possibility of that those kind of families getting a patta. This is a major issue. Mistakes in the title. I was in Adilabad about 2 months back, a village very close to Utnur. My team was there in that village for 4 days doing some survey, and I went there. First thing they said, sir, there is some issue here. The two tribals are fighting. You have to get intervene and do something. Why they are fighting? Sir, because of us only they are fighting. What did you do? Why they are fighting because of you? They said, sir, we went to one tribal family and asked them whether they got a title or not. They came and they showed me the title. They were writing down the details. And the neighbor was also there, their relatives. He saw his photograph on the title. And he started saying that that land is also mine. Because my photograph is there in your title, that land is also belongs to you. Ranging from a wrong photograph is affixed on patta, wrong names are written, but there are more important issues. First time to survey land, GPS technology was used for forest land. In all revenue land, we use cadastral survey, chain and crosstalk methods. But forest terrain is so difficult to measure with chain. And all our forest maps are GPS based maps. To make things very easy, first time GPS missions were used in under Forest Rights Act. And social mobilizers were given a training, basic training to operate GPS. I was doing a first implementation pilot on behalf of the government. I was there in government for some time. I was doing that pilot in Adilabad. So I learned how to operate GPS mission from a forest officer. No problem with the GPS mission. You can do survey with two methods using GPS. I'm speaking from a layman language. If you are any technical person there, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Using GPS mission, one method is that, suppose you have to survey this room, you can stand on 4 corners and take the reading. You give that reading to a computer operator using GPS enabled maps. They can pinpoint, they can put those 4 dots on the map and connect the 4 dots and say this is the extent of the land, this is the map. That's one method. Second method, you go around the land and go around this room, and the GPS mission automatically generates a map and also shows the extent. Then what you have to do, you have to go feed it into the computer. The problem is that the GPS missions we are given to the social mobilizers can only take 16 maps, maximum 8 to 16 maps. And the nearest computer center is only division headquarters. They have to walk and they do 100 kilometers, 150, 200. So most of the time they ended up only taking the reading. But there are lay people. Suppose there are bushes in this side, they are just standing in the other corner, there will be more extent. If they are standing little inside, with a one slight point variation, there is so much of errors in the map. That's one reason why there are a lot of variations in the map. The second reason, usual reason I did not say, Srisailam, I was talking to a tribal families near Srisailam ITDA, Chenchu family. I was sitting in a school building, and the tribal person comes and tells me, sir, I have 10 acres of land next to the building you are sitting, but I only got title for 5 acres. You can measure it now and see it is exactly 10 acres. If I have 1 inch more, you can take it. That you are challenging me. I have a surveyor with me, I have a GPS mission, I have a chain and cross stuff. We have measured. It's exactly 10 acres. I said, why? Why you have not got 10 acres? Sir, somebody gave me a slip, a person who came to survey the land with a bank account number. He could not do anything after that. He has only bank account number. He could not deposit anything in the bank account. So he got only 5 acres. These kind of issues. And apart from all this, one of the other major problem is a fight with the forest department. Because forest department, my apologies if there are anybody from forest department or fans of forest department or sympathizers of forest department, but the forest department until now, they see that forest as their own exclusive territory, and they don't allow anybody. And they are the second or first largest landowners in the country after revenue department, or before revenue department maybe. And they always fight. The two departments always fight. Two big landowners, they always fight, and there is so much of issues. And forest department is always say no, they are refusing. The 10 acres they claim, they say no, put only 5 acres for whatever reasons. Because of those reasons, you still see lot of mistakes there. What you can do, you can make an appeal to sub-divisional authority and also a further appeal to district level authority to make corrections in the title document which is already given to them. This is another big issue in all forest areas, all forest villages. Under Forest Rights Act, it guaranteed 13 different rights, but we only focused on cultivation rights. There are a lot of community rights. Suppose they have a village in forest, they can get a patta for that village. That village can be converted into a revenue village. They have a fish pond, they can get that right for that fish pond. They have a temple, they can get a right for the temple. There is a pathway, they can claim right on pathway. But all of these rights, tribal thought, where will we lose those rights? Anyway, we are enjoying it. What's the point to apply? Then the procedure also a little difficult. Nobody knows how to apply for those pattas, and government didn't bother. So almost all villages, even though at least 10 to 20 community rights exist, they could not make an application. In only areas where they had a problem, they applied. For example, Adilabad, Tiryani. I went to Tiryani. There is a village after that. And first time I was in the Gram Sabha meeting, I said, what kind of rights you want to claim now under this act? First thing they said, they have not talked about cultivation right. They said, sir, we need patta for this pathway. I was very surprised. Why you need a patta for pathway? Sir, every time we are walking, police are stopping us from walking this pathway. So we need a patta for this. Went to East Bazar, I don't exactly remember the village name. They said, we need a patta for our temple. You know why? When they started constructing a compound wall to temple, Forest Department demolished the compound wall. So now they wanted a patta for that. But except for those one or two instances, they have not applied for community rights. If they have not applied now, in future they will face a problem. Because once they didn't claim it, it becomes a forest land. If you encroach again, it's an offense. This is what I was briefly mentioning. In AP, because of this problem, the two departments, even today, could not decide their boundaries. That's fine if the two departments are not able to decide boundaries, their problem. But because of that, lakhs of poor people are suffering. You know why? Today Revenue Department says, this is my land, government land. I am giving you assignment patta, DFAM patta, DKT patta, whatever, Darkastu patta. They give a patta today. Poor people very happily receive that patta, saying that I got 1 acre land, 2 acre land. Tomorrow they start cultivating. Forest Department says, okay, this is forest land, they book a case. Those kind of issues are there from Adilabad to Srikakulam, not in 1 or 2 numbers. Lakhs of people are suffering because there is no clarity of one boundary between Forest and Revenue Department. Continuation to this, another interesting land issue. In Forest Act, under Forest Act, in Forest Act, AP Forest Act, state has a right to declare any land as forest land. That's a power of the state. Today, if the government decides to convert this Marichinad Institute area into a forest, they can give a notification that they can convert this into a forest land, hear claims and decide. The Section 4 notification under Forest Act is the beginning of the process. There is a notification given under Section 4. They are here, there are forest settlement officers, they hear their claims, they decide their claims. Under Section 15, finally they give a notification. This area we are converting into forest. Whether it's a government land, patta land or any land, they can convert into forest. And after that, to make it into a reserved forest, they can give a notification under Section 24, convert into reserved forest. But what will happen to the land on which government said, we have intention to declare this a forest? So that's a Section 4 notification. They never gave a Section 15 notification. What is the status of this land? Today government says Marichinad Institute land, we are saying that they are going to convert into forest. They issued a Section 4 notification. But they never issued a Section 15 notification. What is the status until Section 15 is given? You can continue to use this building, no? Your right is not decided. But unfortunately that's not true. Forest Department deems it to be forest. So that's called deemed forest. And okay, you deem it to be forest, but don't evict people. So left and right, whenever they feel like, they will evict people who are cultivating land or residing land where Section 4 notification is issued, but Section 15 notification is not issued. You face this kind of issues in some of the scheduled area. We have talked about it at length. We have discussed about this. Look at these numbers, we have talked about it. I think I have to close, I believe it's 5 o'clock. I'll close in another 5 minutes if you permit. Only sharing 1 or 2 examples and give 1 or 2 concluding comments. One is that what you see on slide there, one lady who's sitting on that piece of land. Her name is Mankubai. She is from Adilabad district. a remote village there, Jangaon village, Jengur Mandal, and she's my first client. So I'm always happy to share this case, not because she's my first client. She brought inspiration. Because of her, we have a huge legal aid program running in the state. That's why I have to share this example. And will tell you that there is possibility to fight in LTR issues. Their family lost 18 acres of land somewhere in 1960s. She not even remembers. I asked her how she lost the land. She is a Mandal Samaika president. I don't know currently, but she was a Mandal Samaika president a few years back. And while Mr. Jairam Ramesh as an MP touring Adilabad along with Mr. Vijay Kumar, current Joint Secretary, Rural Development Department, Government of India, when he was a CEO, sir, when he was in tribal area, she came, met those two people and said, sir, I have a problem and I'm a Mandal Samaika president. I'm not able to solve my own issue. Can you do something about it? That's how this case came to me. But that story apart, the issue is that they lost 18 acres of land somewhere in 60s, and she described saying that her father went to a local money lender for about 500 rupees, some marriage or some occasion in the family. He mortgaged the land and mortgaged with possession, saying that in lieu of the interest, you cultivate the land. Once I paid principal amount, he'll take back the land. After a few years, when he approached the money lender, he said, I bought your land. There is no question of returning it. That's the beginning of the dispute. And the struggle started from then. He went to SDC court. The tribal family, somebody told, and he went to SDC court. He got a decision, favorable decision, saying that there is a LTR violation, land has to be restored back to tribal family. Non-tribal appealed to agent. There also tribal got a favorable order. Then non-tribal went to High Court. High Court said, there is another remedy available, please go to government. Non-tribal went to government. Government again decided it's a tribal land, it has to be restored back to tribal. Then again he came to High Court, saying that I've already gone to government, but still I have not got justice. Finally, in 1984, High Court said, LTR does not apply in this particular case, because the transaction appears to have happened in 1962. LTR came into force in Telangana from 1963. But, and then they said they quashed all the lower court orders, but however, if the tribal family has any other remedy in any other law, appropriate law, they can approach the appropriate forum. Very beautiful language, 2-3 lines. And the tribal, I think they could not understand anything. And government, which has to fight on behalf of tribal welfare department, they could not pursue the case after that. In 2004, she again approached the project officer. Her father passed away. She's now fighting that struggle. Went to POITDA saying that, sir, I have a problem, can you do something about it? POITDA issued a notice to non-tribal, not mentioning under what law. He said, I have a case before me, until I dispose this case, please don't dispose of your property. That's it. He didn't say anything else. He took that notice of the POITDA, again came to High Court and said, in spite of the order of the Honorable High Court, officers are harassing me, please issue a stay, permanent stay, restraining these officers to conduct an inquiry. And the High Court happily granted a stay. At that stage, case came to us. What can we do? They've lost land in 1960s. It went to all authorities, all three. It went to High Court. There's a High Court order and then again there's a High Court stay. Can we do anything about it? And almost all tribal cases are like this. At first instance, we look at it, it looks almost impossible to fight. They can't get the land. Simple answer, they can't get the land. And Jairam Ramesh looked at me and said, Sunil, if you win this case, I believe that your legal aid program will work and we'll scale up the program. I said, we took it as a challenge. It's one case. How many cases you can fight that in that way? I don't know. So we started fighting. I went to RDO and said, sir, can you do anything about it? RDO said, we can't do anything, Sunil. If you're really so interested to help that family, let's assign 10 more acres somewhere else. That's the answer I got from RDO. Then I said, give me some time. If I fail to win the case, let's happily do that. Give some 10 acres of land. So my first inquiry revealed, I started with land records. What is there in the land records? What is a physical possession? I read all High Court papers and everything. What I realized, there is a law before 1963 also in Telangana, the Agricultural Land Tenancy Act says that transfer of any agricultural land, there is a prior permission of the collector is must. Without collector's permission, you can't transfer. If you transfer, land can be restored back to the original seller. And there is no limitation. So I can file a case under that with the collector. First remedy. Second, if I prove that the transaction happened not before 63 but after 63, still I can win case. To prove that, I have to file a a new fresh LTR case. I went to field. In field, there is another non-tribal cultivating land on lease. So there is again violation of LTR. LTR is a continuing offence. Every minute a non-tribal continues in possession, it's a violation of LTR, you can file a fresh case. So you can file another fresh case there. I went to MRO office, looked at the land records. In land records, after digging for 1 or 2 days, what I realized in one of the survey reports, this TGMS survey done during NTR's regime, Telugu Gramina Magani Samaradhana, physical inventory of all lands in tribal area, one of the registers is mentioned as government land. That 18 acres is mentioned as government land. That means this land is assigned to tribal family. So what I have done, simple remedy, filed a POT case in Tahsildar Court. It is AP Assigned Land Provisional Transfer Act 1977. Filed a case in MRO Court. In about 6 months, we could restore the land back to the tribal family. It's a different story that they are still fighting. The non-tribal is still fighting. Went to RDO, went to JC, and now coming to CCLA. But good news is that they have the possession of the land. Let other families, let the non-tribal can fight. But and another part of the story is that because she is fighting the land, they have 3 legal heirs, 2 brothers and herself. She got 10 acres and 2 brothers shared 4 acres. It gave us so much of inspiration. One is this case and a common case. And we thought even what we think is impossible, there is some way out. Only thing is that you have to apply your mind and have a passion to do it. It can happen. And I have done that without a green pen. I think you can better do more cases like that if you have a green pen. So with this kind of story, my journey was on, looking at a lot of issues. Around 3 lakh or 4 lakh issues got resolved through a system which was built in IKP, now part of a bigger mission in RDI. Now tomorrow onwards, we are going to scale up this paralegal initiative across country under Ministry of Rural Development. I am doing my bit. I may be a little talking more about myself, but I really want to talk about more about myself to say that I am not talking from bookish knowledge. I am talking about what I have done, what are limited things I have done. Just to tell you that it is possible, not to say that I have achieved great things. If I would have already achieved a lot of great things in regarding these issues, you might not have a tribal problem. There is a tribal problem means that whatever you have achieved is nothing. It's very, very, very minimal. So, if you take this kind of inspiration, there is so much things can be done. I wanted to conclude by only saying one last thing. As officers, I remember what one of High Court judge said. He recently retired from High Court. When I just joined my career, I joined my journey as a legal coordinator there. I went to meet him as a courtesy call. In his chambers, he said, there's a famous saying you might already know. He repeated to me, saying that, Sunil, if you are not a communist before 30, you are an idiot. You are still a communist after 30, you are a fool. He said that, and second statement he made, stating that సొసైటీలో ఉన్న సమస్యలన్నీ రావణ కష్టం లాంటి ఓవర్ నైట్గా ప్రపంచాన్ని మార్చేస్తాం అనుకోవద్దు. మెల్లగా వెళ్ళు, కానీ చెంబు నీళ్ళన్నా దాంట్లో పోయటం ఇంపార్టెంట్. అందరూ ఒక చెంబు నీళ్ళు పోస్తేనే అది తగ్గుతుంది మంట. ఓవర్ నైట్గా అయితే మారదు. ఓవర్ నైట్గా మారలేదని డిసప్పాయింట్ కాకూడదు, ఎట్ ద సేమ్ టైం ఏం చేయకుండా ఉండకూడదు. సో వీ హ్యావ్ టు డూ సంథింగ్. అండ్ ఇఫ్ యూ టేక్ దట్ as inspiration, we can achieve lot. And one example I always love to say to everybody, and that's my last thing which I can tell it to you, that society is like your house. Suppose you earn a lot of money, you become very stingingly rich, and you got a nice house in this area, Bandara Hills, built with 10 crores, 20 crores or 30 crores. You have around 20 servants in your house. Every day you are cleaning your house and throwing the dust outside the compound wall, thinking that somebody will pick it up. But if nobody is picking the dust, after some point of time, it's a matter of days or months or years, it will start stinking. And the day comes, definitely, where you have only left with 2 options. Either you go out and clean, or you leave that house. Society is the same thing. We clean every day, we give our contribution, whatever we can, or someday we see anarchy, we see people fighting, and people taking recourse to gun. Option is very simple. And giving that option or not giving that option is left with you, because you are with Green Pen. Thank you very much for listening to me.
On behalf of Group 1 Officer Trainees and NCRHRD, I am extending my thanks for inviting us to our tribal issues. And so that's awesome. So I am also congratulating for they also wish us success in your crusade in protecting the tribal issues.
Thank you.